What up, everybody? Happy Memorial Day weekend. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. As you see, Anthony and I running a cover 2 tonight, and the cover 2 is brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. You go check them out. They have a great promotion going over at BetUS. You can also check out Giants Collective on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever else you get your podcast. If you want to become a member of the channel, just hit the join button. You get custom emojis, monthly member messages, your name in the outro, and access to members-only live chats. You can also check us out on TikTok and Instagram, uploading content there all the time. So welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. I know that it's slim pickings this day and age. So before we get into the Giants, can we have a moment of silence for the Knicks? What the hell was that, man? That was listen, man, I've been a Knicks fan for over 40 years. That was one of the most brutal losses I've ever witnessed, but I come to expect nothing less, kind of like I do with the New York Giants. I don't expect much from them, and I really don't expect much from the Knicks, but unfortunately, that is what it is. So, Anthony, how's your week going? What's going on?
It's going great for me. Hopefully the Knicks do bounce back tonight. Would like to see them get the win. It's funny enough because I'm a pretty casual Knicks and NBA fan, so I usually don't watch the whole game. I turned on just the ending of that game and witnessed absolute tragedy. It was like almost ironically funny, but also it wasn't funny at all because it was a painful ending to watch. But no, I'm doing good because I've got my Napoli shirt on today, and Napoli won the championship today, and I'm extremely happy.
There you go. I wonder how Tuto's feeling about that. Tuto, if he's even in here.
He's probably not feeling too good. I think he's an AC Milan fan, and Milan lost to us. So
yeah, well, at least one of your teams won, which is always a good thing.
Yep.
So if you guys have any questions in the chat, please launch them right out there because there's like I said, there's not a lot to discuss. It's the end of May. There's not, we can talk about OTAs or whatever, but they really don't do that. It's more of a bonding thing. I guess, Anthony, I'll start with this. What do you think about Brian Daboll bringing in the legends to talk to these young guys? Obviously, we saw Lawrence Taylor came in there and talked to him, and I thought Daboll had a good sense of humor when he said, "Hey, Abdul, you know this guy." So what do you think about him? Justin Tuck came to speak to him. Michael Strahan obviously has talked to them. So it seems like they're pretty much preaching defense to these young guys. How do you think that goes over with the young guys?
I love that they're bringing in the legends, and it's the defensive guys, Justin Tuck, Lawrence Taylor. Eli Manning was in recently too, so was Victor Cruz. So it's both sides of the ball are getting some legends in there. And I really like it because, I think it means a lot for the rookies just to get that sense of tradition and that sense of legacy that we as Giants fans pride ourselves in so much. I mean, we have such a rich history with this organization that spans 101 years now going into 2025 seasons. So there's just so much history and there's so much to appreciate. And I think for a lot of the rookies and for young fans, it can be, and I'm a young fan myself, but, it can be difficult if you didn't grow up a fan of the team and you're now just on the team at 21 years old. It's kind of hard to appreciate the history of the team. But meeting those legends, seeing the way that they walk in the room and everybody lights up and the whole vibe changes, the aura and the presence that they have in the room, I think all of that is very important for the rookies to understand and to strive toward. Like Abdul Carter said he wants to be great, wants to be a legend. Well, now he sees Lawrence Taylor, the way he's treated when he walks in the room. I think it's all just very important and very exciting. So I'm happy with it. I also, to some extent, think maybe fans overblow it a little bit. Like they always react and say, oh, Lawrence Taylor should be a coach for this team. Eli Manning should be a coach for this team. I think we don't want to go that far, but I just think it's cool for players to get the sense of appreciation that you can gain by being a legend in this franchise.
That's a great point because, like you said, if you didn't grow up watching the team, and obviously these kids didn't because they're kids, I mean, they're, and you don't really understand until, like you said, you meet a guy. It's easy to say, I want Lawrence Taylor's number. Would you actually get to be within his presence and understand the type of respect that he commands in the Giants facility because he's the greatest player in the history of the Giants. He's the greatest defense player in the history of football. There's no question about it. But to also see those guys like Justin Tuck, the Eli Mannings, guys that have won championships, Hall of Famers that have been here, guys that have tasted success with the New York Giants. And it's nice for them to come in there, take time to try to pass on that legacy to these guys because we know that the Giants organization has been lost for over a decade now. It's been really bad. And there is so much glorious history with this franchise, but it's weird how the New York Giants operate like they're really good for a long period of time. Then they're really bad for a long period of time. Like they were bad when my dad was growing up, from 1964 to 1983. There's a 20-year period there where they made the playoffs one time, and they were really, really bad. And then in 84, when I started watching them, they got to be really good. And from like 1984 to 2011, they won 4 championships. They were competitive a lot of the times. They had their down years, but they were also in the playoffs a lot. They won division titles. I mean, they were always competitive. They weren't really embarrassing like they were in the 60s and 70s. And now we're kind of going through that phase again where they've been overwhelmingly embarrassing, no more embarrassing than last year, setting all kinds of dubious records in the 100th year anniversary. I mean, the irony of that is kind of crazy. So you'd hope that these guys bringing a tradition of winning back would influence these young guys to give it their all so they can understand what it means to be a New York Giant. So I really like it as well. So I think it's good. And just looking for some of these things over here. What did I see? I got to get rid of this really quick. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. On the struggle bus today, Larry says, has this ever been done before? I don't remember if it has. It's saying they have overwhelming confidence in the team, or is it just media marketing not to be overanalyzed?
Well, I know that the Giants have always kept a really good relationship with their legendary players. All of the former players of the organization always recommend incoming players to the Giants because of the way they treat you like family. So the Giants do have a great reputation among players. As fans, it's easy from the outside looking in to be overwhelmingly critical of a really bad product that's been on the field. But within the organization, I know that there is a tremendous level of respect that carries from the ownership down to the front office, to the coaching staff, to all of the assistant workers in the building, and of course to the players. So I think things like this have always been done before. And just because the Giants do stay in such great connection with the legends of the team. So, and I also think there's part of the reason that they're doing it is because of how poorly last season went, right? They went 3-14. For the returning players, they might feel like, what's different this year? We're coming back from a really bad season. How are you going to win me over? How are you going to prove to me that we're going to do better than we did last year? Because maybe I'm a player and I'm in my prime years. Like I'm Dexter Lawrence, and I've been here for several years and we've done nothing but lose. We had that one moment of a playoff win, but other than that, it's been terrible. And last year it was the worst it's ever been. So what's going to be different going into 2025? And maybe the Giants are getting these legends on board, getting everybody that they can involved with the process to say, hey, we're going to try and go out there with a different demeanor, be a little bit more of an exciting product on the football field, get everybody on the same page early in this process this time around. Because I know that the legends do come around during training camp, but having it happen prior to OTAs, I do think says a little something about the Giants trying to get off to an earlier start this season, a little bit of a faster start, and get everybody on the same page sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that maybe I wouldn't say they have overwhelming confidence in the team, but and again, maybe it's me, maybe it's my May fandom because it comes out every May. I feel like the Giants did a really good job this year, and maybe it's just me again wanting them to be really good. And I'm not saying they're going to be really good, but I do think this team is massively improved. And to Anthony's point, we always get off the slow starts every year. It always seems like the Giants are behind, and we don't really get. I mean, we never really played good football. We didn't play good football most of last year, but at least we had a couple games there. The game in Seattle where we were really good, and then we just lost 10 in a row, whatever the hell it was. But it always seems like we are behind. It always seems like we don't really get off to playing cohesive football until like week 4, where they kind of figure stuff out, and then everybody gets hurt, and then they're starting all over again. But it always seems like we're never prepared the first couple of games of the season. So maybe bringing these guys in, maybe doing it a step earlier, maybe you'll see things happen earlier so that when they do, get ready to play in week 1, they'll be ready to go this year, and there'll be no stone left unturned. And maybe they just want to concentrate on training camp. Getting these guys in there now to discuss this isn't taken away from training camp. These guys they'll probably be around all off season. I'd be surprised if they weren't around in training camp. But I think it is good to get in their heads, let them know, training camp is very important too. You got to take this stuff seriously, man. They practice for a reason. Practice makes better. I'll never say perfect because there is no such thing as perfect. Unless you bowl, you can't actually be perfect, but you can't be perfect every time. So practice makes better. And the Giants will never be perfect, but they can certainly be better. No question about it. And yeah, I don't know if they brought him in this early, Larry, but they definitely brought them in before, without question, to talk to the young players. So we'll see what it means, but I like it. I like the veteran players coming back to, we said, we also saw Carl Banks meet Abdul Carter like the day he was flown to New York. So another legend right there to meet the young rookie ready to go. And, put a little, let these guys get a little competitive edge. Let them know what it's like. They've been there. They've done that. Let them know this is what this is kind of what's expected of you. You were picked third overall. This is what goes with that. And give them a little bit of an advantage and expect this, so we'll see. Tiggy Skibbles. Now that the Tush Push has survived, we have 4th and 1 on offense. Put Sexy Dexy in and Tush Push behind that hog molly.
Who's stopping that? I don't think anybody's stopping Dexter Lawrence. It's kind of like William the Fridge Perry, right? The Bears defensive lineman who used to be the fullback. I mean, listen, if you want to put Dexter Lawrence in at fullback and let him take a handoff, I don't think anybody's going to want to get in front of him. So that might be an auto touchdown or auto conversion on 4th and 1.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'd want him to put him in the precarious situation. He's obviously never ran the football before. And, it'd be fun to watch. No question about it. Maybe you get him in there to push the quarterback. I mean, maybe that you could do. I don't know if I'd want him like taking a snap, but maybe you get him back there to just shove the quarterback, line him up in a fullback position or whatever, and let him shove because who is stopping that? That's crazy.
What was the name of the Giants defensive tackle that would play both sides? Nikita Whitlock, is that his name?
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's going back a little bit there. I forgot all about him. They used to do that with there was a guy, in 1986, they would bring in a defensive end. Sometimes they would, I don't know if he was a defensive end, but I think it might have been another offensive lineman. His name was Damian Johnson, and they used to bring him in like a jumbo set, and they would line him up in the backfield as well. So you never know. They could do that, but that Tush Push has to be outlawed. I don't, it's kind of crazy to think, which is going to bring me to this one, because this was a comment. And I just kind of thought this was funny. I like the way people word stuff. There it is. He says, Arvin Parmar, he says, ha ha, man. Ha ha. Let me read it the way he wrote it. Ha ha, man. As a Giants fan, it's pathetic hearing all the reasons that Tush Push should be banned. That's bitch shit, boys. What do you think about that?
Listen, okay, half of what he's saying, sure, because, don't bitch about it, just find a way to stop it. And I agree with that, right? Like the Giants, they've got Dexter Lawrence. They just added more to the interior of the defensive line, and all the other teams find a way to stop it. But there is definitely reason to feel as though it doesn't belong in the sport. That's why it's such a hot topic of conversation. That's why it barely passed the vote to remain in standing with the league. So I don't know. I get it. I understand. Maybe it's not the most exciting topic of conversation, but hey, OTAs haven't even started yet, and that was the most pressing matter. And I don't know. I stand by it. I think that the Tush Push should have been banned. I think it's bad for the sport.
Yeah, I listen. Like you said, there's a reason that a bunch of teams voted for that. It's not just the Giants. And I thought the reasons for it being banned were, well, there's two things. Number one, we hate Philadelphia. That's part of it. But, there is a major injury risk. I don't think we really gave bad reasons. I think you might have mentioned it, Anthony, or maybe Chris did. But the NFL is very reactive to stuff. And they could have been proactive with this before somebody does get seriously hurt. Eagle fans love it, and I get it. If we could run that play as successfully as they do, we wouldn't want it to be banned either. But say, God forbid, Jalen Hurts gets really hurt from it, and he misses, 14 games, and they end up losing. Then what are you going to do? Then what are Eagle fans going to say? Oh, that's Jalen Hurts' fault, or oh, they should have banned that, or I guess they got nobody to blame but themselves. But listen, I'm of the advocate of the same thing. I don't like the play, but stop it. I don't know what else to say about it. It's legal. Use it. It's fine with me. I just hate the fucking Eagles. That's really all this comes down to. If the Bills ran this play, I probably couldn't care less. But it's Philadelphia.
What's funny is everybody says Philadelphia runs it. Philadelphia runs it the best, but other teams do run it. Yeah. The Baltimore Ravens run it. They put Mark Andrews in at quarterback, and then they push him. So they just protect Lamar Jackson, but they still do it. There are other teams that find success with it. So, everybody does point to the Eagles because they invented it and they run it better than anybody because their quarterback can squat 750 pounds, and that's completely abnormal. But there are other teams that run it. So I think from a Giants fan's perspective, figure out how to run it. The Giants should be able to find a way. Like if the Ravens are creative enough to protect Lamar Jackson by taking him off the field and putting Mark Andrews on their center to do the tush push, why can't the Giants copy that? Maybe you don't want to, put Russell Wilson or whoever in harm's way. Okay, but do what the Ravens do. Don't do what the Philadelphia Eagles do. The Ravens also run it very effectively, and I think the Giants should find a way to put somebody on their center, push them forward, and convert these 4th and shorts, because they had a couple moments last year where they didn't convert in short, and they failed certain tush pushes. Find a way to do it. Like the best teams in the NFL are doing it. It's a copycat league. Get a tight end. Maybe Theo Johnson can push forward. I don't know, and I don't care. Just find somebody who can tush push their way for a first down.
It's amazing to me that we don't run it success. It seems like such an easy play to run. It really does. It seems so basic. Just snap the ball. Just quarterback just has to take the ball, and he don't really do anything. I guess he pushes a little bit, but he's also getting pushed forward. There's really nothing to it, but for some reason we can do it. But then again, a lot of that has to do with those big guys up front. And when you don't win the line of scrimmage, which we haven't, you're not going to win that play. The Eagles' offensive line is probably the best in football. If it's not, it's certainly top 3. And because their defense is so good, you also see how low their center gets. Like that's so important, that, center of gravity, that leverage you're getting when you're really low, where you can just push guys backwards. So it's all about getting really low. You see guys try to jump over the pile, but it's not going to matter when the quarterback's getting shoved, because you got no momentum jumping over the pile, trying to stop, like you said, a guy that can squat 700 pounds getting shoved from behind by 2 gigantic linemen. So it does seem like we should be able to run it, but we don't run it like they do. They do it the best. So it's crazy. Fireplace Gaming says, hey, Anthony, first time joining Giants Collective Stream. Well, thank you, Fireplace Gaming. We appreciate you coming over. Since the Giants drafted Jackson Dart, we should be in prime position to go BPA in next year's draft, right?
Hopefully, but it's going to depend on where we finish this season. And it would ideally, I think this roster right now was situated to go BPA in this most recent draft, which is why they took Abdul Carter number 3 overall. And they have a quarterback, so, with Jackson Dart, so they won't need to reach on a quarterback next year. And, I'm of the mind of you should always be trying to go BPA. But then again, if the Giants have an injury to Andrew Thomas again this season, right, and maybe he misses half the year, are you going to go BPA, or are you going to take the best tackle on the board? That could end up becoming an option. So that's just a knock on wood, God forbid scenario. But I think it's just a little too soon to tell. Right now, if there was the 2026 draft tomorrow, the Giants are going BPA. But we got to get through the course of the season, see where our strengths and weaknesses truly lie. What if Deonte Banks doesn't take a step forward? In fact, he takes a big step backwards. Well, then maybe your number 1 priority is going to be cornerback again. And then you go after a cornerback in the first round of the draft. So it's really just hard to tell this far out. But ideally, if Jackson Dart, if you believe in him as a franchise quarterback, and I do, and all other things remain constant, players take steps forward and nobody has any catastrophic injuries, I think this team is quite well positioned to go BPA, because they're also not losing a ton of players in next free agency, not a bunch of key stars. I think their only impending free agents of significance really are Wan'Dale Robinson, Cordell Flott, Daniel Bellinger. I don't even think those are significant. Evan Neal, I guess, and maybe a few others. But primarily speaking, this roster that they have right now should be mostly intact next offseason, and it should just be about putting a couple more pieces in place. Maybe that is by going BPA, just to make it as good of an environment for an essential rookie quarterback. He'll be in his second season, but essentially a rookie starting quarterback entering the mix next season.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I think it does depend on a lot what happens this year. It's really difficult to talk about 2026 and which position they may go, but if we're really bad and Daboll and Shane lose their jobs, they may just go quarterback. And whether that's best player available or not, who knows? But to Anthony's point, if Andrew Thomas does get hurt again, they might have to start looking at a replacement, because if you can't rely on the guy, you might have to get something. The Giants should always be approaching the offensive line anyway. We talk about this all the time. Chris loves a 300-pound man. It says we should draft 1 or 2 every year. But if everything plays out the way we hope it will, then yes, the Giants should be going BPA, because, Anthony mentioned this months ago that you're supposed to take BPA in the draft and you use free agency for need, not vice versa, which is kind of what Joe Shane did the first couple of years he was here. And it seems like the last couple of years he has gone BPA in the draft, and he's used the free agency for need, which is why I think the last 2 years, even though it didn't reflect on the field last year, I feel like it's going to start to reflect itself this year. And while I don't think we're going to win 11 games, I don't think that 7 or 8's out of the realm of possibility, even though our schedule is really tough. So we'll see. I mean, it's a long season, man. It's a long season. I know the draft is people love the draft, so they're always looking at the shiny new toy. We just had one, but they had. I mean, I remember seeing somebody put it on Twitter where they said a 2026 draft, and the Giants were picking first overall, and they took a lineman, and then the next team took Arch Manning. I'm like, if the Giants are picking first overall, you'd think they'd pass on Arch Manning. I mean, come on, man. Arch ain't coming out next year anyway. I'll be shocked if he did. Our guy Lucas, the legendary Lucas from Down Under, so he knows something about this. From Australia, says they based the Tush Push from a rugby scrum. Rugby scrums engage at the same time. It's a massive advantage to have the initial movement. So yeah, obviously getting a really good jump off the ball, that should give the advantage to the offense without question. They know the snap count. They're going to go as soon as the ball is snapped. Defenses are always reacting to it, but I'm surprised we can't run it. I'm surprised we can't run it better than we do, but
we got to find a way, because you're not going to stop it. Realistically, the Eagles are going to keep running at a 90-something% success rate. So the Giants just need to find a way to at least run it at an 80-something% success rate. There's really not an excuse. It's the easiest play to run, as you said, Bad Dog. There's not that much to it. Just watch some rugby film and make it work. The Giants got to find a way to get it done.
Yep, find the soft spot and just lean left, lean right, and let your big guys push it. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I always thought that's what it was anyway, but something, I don't know. Truth Bearer says, I think the Tush Push will be banned. Just optically, it will look bad to ban it after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They'll probably ban it next year as long as the Eagles are defending champions. Might be something to that. Maybe there is something to that, but I don't think it's that. I think they just didn't get the majority vote. I don't know why teams would vote for it, honestly, but unless they run it effectively. And I don't know. Again, I don't watch every NFL game, so it's hard for me to know who else actually runs that successfully. I know the Eagles do it better than anybody. And you mentioned the Ravens are really good at it. I know we're not. And the Bills probably can do it pretty well because Josh Allen's a monster. But I don't know how many of the teams actually run that play. So I'm surprised.
The Bills do. The Bills run it pretty decently, but of course they ran it unsuccessfully at the end of the AFC Conference Championship game, which was, the big. But was it unsuccessful? If you remember, that was the play where it looked like the ball went over, but the refs kind of botched the call.
It did go over. It did go over.
I definitely think it went over.
They just didn't. They said, nah, not this year. No, we got to put Kansas City back in there. We know, but I don't know, man. I'm surprised because, again, it gives the Eagles a major advantage. So why wouldn't you want to take an advantage away from the defending champions? I think it was even more of a reason to ban it if you're an opposition team. So this team just won a championship. They use this play extremely effectively. Nobody can stop it. We actually saw the officials just give a touchdown to them because Washington just kept jumping over the line of scrimmage. Why wouldn't you say, yeah, let's get rid of that altogether so that they don't have that in their, in their arsenal anymore? But they didn't. Larry says, let's say Wilson balls out. We get back to the playoffs. Should they resign him or just say thank you for your service and move on?
So I don't think Russell Wilson plays for the Giants in 2026, no matter what. Even if he takes them to the playoffs, I think you have to look at this from the perspective of what's he going to do in free agency immediately following that. The past couple of years, he's been a journeyman quarterback who's been signing stopgap one-year deals as kind of a bridge with the Steelers last year. And this year, of course, with the New York Giants at 1 year, $10 million. But if he were to say throw for close to 4,000 yards and close to 30 touchdowns or even surpass those benchmarks, he's no longer going to be paid like a stopgap journeyman quarterback. He's going to get a contract next offseason that pays him in excess of $30 million. And for a Giants team that just invested a first-round pick and 2 third-round picks into Jackson Dart, why would you pay Russell Wilson on a 1-year contract $30 million? It wouldn't make sense. You would instead just turn it over to your rookie quarterback. So I don't see any way for Russell Wilson to be back with the Giants next season. Again, even if they go to the playoffs, he plays well. that just means that he's going to get paid well next offseason. And the Giants, first of all, only have, I think, $25 million in projected cap space next offseason. They're going to have to make moves to get back under the cap again next year. So they can't really afford to bring in a $30 million per year quarterback the same way they couldn't really afford to do that this past offseason. So ultimately, even if Russell Wilson plays well, it's a one-year deal, and it's going to remain that, in my opinion. This is Jackson Dart's team. It's just about, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when he's ready, he's going to go ahead and take over. And it's really going to be reminiscent of when the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, moved on from Alex Smith. They went to the playoffs with Alex Smith. He was in, I think, the second to last year of his contract, but going into that final year of his deal, they traded him away despite making the playoffs with him as their starting quarterback. And then they rolled with Mahomes as the starter in the second season of Mahomes' career. And Mahomes was immediately the MVP and took them to the Super Bowl. So it paid off quite well for them. So I think that Russell Wilson just finds himself in the Alex Smith situation. Play as well as you can so you get paid next offseason and you have a starting job next year. But that starting job is not going to be with the New York Giants.
Yeah, I totally agree. If he balls out, he's going to get paid a lot of money, especially with the New York Giants because they haven't been really good. So if he can take this team to the postseason and he has a really big season, somebody's going to pay him. I mean, he's only 37. I say only 37. It's, that's not young as far as an NFL player goes, but it's not like he's Aaron Rodgers' age. It's not like he's 41 or 42. If he has a really good season this year, there's no reason to think a team that is quarterback needy would say, hey, Russ, we'll give you, 3 years, $80 million or $90 million, or whatever. And the Giants can't afford to do that at all. But it would be a good thing if this team was good enough to be a playoff team, then then Jackson Dart's got to be set up for success. No question about it. If they're willing to trade up for the guy to get him, they think he's the future quarterback. Russ was obviously brought in here to be a stopgap. They signed him to a 1-year deal. So I don't think they ever plan on Russell Wilson playing beyond 2025 unless maybe they were not able to get the quarterback that they wanted in the draft. Then maybe they would look at extending him if he had a good year. But the fact that he came in here for $10 million with incentives to get up to, I think, $20 million for 1 year, I think he knows his place. And I think for him, like Anthony just said, this is let me go out there, let me ball out, I'm playing for another contract is what he's doing. So he's going to have a lot of incentive to play well as well. It's not like Russell Wilson just got paid a boatload of money and he's a New York Giant for the next 8 years. He literally is a free agent at the end of next year. So if he has a good year, he knows he's going to get paid. And if he doesn't have a good year, well, he knows that he'll probably end up with a backup type quarterback money like he did this year, even though he's not the backup. So I don't think Russ is a quarterback for the Giants in any part beyond this year. Jameis, he'll be back, though. I have a feeling Jameis will be back.
I think Jameis will be back unless he ends up becoming some midseason trade bait. I think that's something that's kind of interesting, just because there are a couple of teams that didn't really patch up the quarterback position you would have expected them to. Similar, like let's use the New Orleans Saints as an example. Obviously, they didn't expect Derek Carr to abruptly retire the way that he did. But now that he has, they're rolling into the season with the likes of, Tyler Shuck and that other guy who I don't even know what his name is, and Spencer Rattler as their quarterbacks. So one of those guys is going to start for them, and that has the potential to become pretty disastrous by midseason, and they play in a pretty weak division, so they might midseason say, hey, you know what? We have familiarity with Jameis Winston first and foremost because he was on the team a couple years ago. Our division is wide open. Even though we're a bad football team, we're only a few games behind. Perhaps we trade a 3rd or 4th round pick over to the Giants for Jameis Winston, and that might be really hard for the Giants to say no to, a mid-round pick, potentially even a top 100 pick to a quarterback-needy team for their backup quarterback. So, yeah, I think Winston is here next year. That's why he was on the 2-year contract, but I wouldn't discount a team getting desperate around the deadline and saying, hey, we need a stopgap quarterback. This is getting ugly, and maybe trying to trade for Jameis Winston.
Yeah, well, I don't know what they get for Jameis Winston, but it's definitely possible because – if Jackson Dart's ready to take that step and they say he's going to be the backup or whatever, and he comes in there at the end of the year, you're probably not going to need James. You have to go out and get another quarterback, but we'll see how it goes. I'm actually surprised that New Orleans didn't keep him around because I don't really, like I said, Tyler Shuck, what do they do? Anthony, you got to help me with this, man. I don't watch. I watch college football, but I don't know anything about Tyler Shuck. Maybe it's not even him per se. What is your thought about this? Because I've never been able to figure this out. There's always that guy that is like projected to be a 6th round, and all of a sudden he's just the darling of the NFL draft. This year was Tyler Shuck. I never heard of the kid. He's my age. Not really. I mean, what is he? 20? He's 26, 27, right? He's like Brandon Whedon was.
significantly older than I am. So
right. So there you go. He's significantly younger than me because whatever. But he's for a rookie, that's an older quarterback. And all of a sudden, he shoots way up the boards. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. All of a sudden, they're talking about him being like a first-round pick, and he was the third quarterback off the board. Why does this happen? Like, do you have any explanations to why there's just one guy? Like, what did he do that was like, oh, we got to get this guy on the team?
So it's a couple of things, because I listen to a lot of NFL draft shows and NFL general shows. Since I do a Giants show, I truthfully don't listen to a lot of Giants shows because I talk about the Giants all the time. So I get my change of pace by listening to the NFL draft shows because I love football. So I'll listen to a lot of those, like the NFL Stock Exchange. And the way that they kind of explain situations like this is it's the media catching up with the league, because what you have essentially in the media is a lot of fans and analysts who watch and evaluate football, but they kind of just make their own uneducated opinions in comparison to the education that the NFL teams have. So let's say that the media says this guy's a 6th-round pick, this guy's a 6th-round pick, because all of the media boards have him that way. We don't know what the NFL boards have him as. And maybe throughout the entirety of the process, they had him as a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick the entire time, and we just didn't know it. So what it is, when we get to the draft and all of a sudden a guy becomes a 2nd-round pick, it's the media catching up with the opinion that the NFL already had. And then with Tyler Shuck in particular, there were some weird things that went on. Like, first of all, it was a wide open, weak rookie draft class for the quarterback position. But then some of the other factors include the fact that he went through so much adversity, like he had so many injuries and he went to so many different schools. NFL teams looked at that as a positive because that's kind of mirrors what you go through in the league. So they claimed him to be one of the more pro-ready quarterbacks because he's handled adversity and still fought through to get through that. And then there's the other part of it where I'll liken this to movie award season. If you know anything about how that works, the awards at the Oscars don't go to the best movies. They go to the nominated parties who promote themselves the best and do the most politicking. And essentially, Tyler Shuck did a really good job during the pre-draft process, interviewing with teams, nailing those interviews, and then going on different shows like the Rich Eisen show and this show and that show, doing a lot of the politicking that helped him stay in the forefront of these NFL teams' minds and make such a positive impression around the NFL. So it kind of, again, comparing it to the Oscars, it was kind of like he went on a campaign for himself, really promoted himself, and then rose his status up within the academy is the analogy, but within the NFL here. And that's essentially what happened with Tyler Shuck and why he went so early in the draft. And then the final factor is it just takes one team. Like the Giants fell in love with Daniel Jones. They took him at number 6 overall. They shouldn't have done that. It just takes one team to fall in love with you, and you go way earlier than anybody else expects you to. And the Saints, they fell in love with Tyler Shuck pretty early in the process, and they decided that was going to be their guy.
I guess you could say the opposite was true for Shedeur Sanders.
The exact opposite.
He did exactly the opposite.
Yep. Yeah, because when he was going through those interviews, we haven't heard a single positive about any of the interviews that he did, only negative. And so I think that's what happened to him.
It is amazing how much goes into actually drafting a player. It's not just about what they do on the field and what they do at the combine or don't do at the combine, because like you said, he didn't compete in anything. It's just kind of, it was almost a sense of entitlement. Like, I'm Shedeur Sanders, pick me. What are you talking about? I'm Shedeur. I'm Deion's kid. Pick me. I deserve to be picked now. And that don't fly when you go, you're not entitled to anything. It doesn't matter who your dad is, whether you like that or not. But listen, Shedeur Sanders has a chance to prove himself in Cleveland because that quarterback room is a mess. So he's going to be the starter week 1. I can't imagine anybody else being the starter week 1. I don't know. Big shout out to BetUS. BetUS always sponsors our streams here at Giants Collect. If you go to BetUS, check them out. Enter the promo code YouTube150. You get a 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit, a 125% match deposit bonus on your second and third deposit, all the way up to $2,000 of bonus cash. They have great customer service, 24/7, 365, the fastest payouts in the business within 24 hours. You also get 10% gambler's insurance against all your net losses as long as you stay active every 6 months. Terms and conditions apply. And when you gamble, we ask that you do it responsibly. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. And here is a look at Bobby O. And you can take a look at, he had a great 2023 under Wink Martindale. 149 tackles, 2.5 sacks. Looked like an all-pro. Okay. Was he an All-Pro that year? He was a Pro Bowler, right? But he wasn't an All-Pro, but he played
I
like
don't
one.
think he made the Pro Bowl either. I think he got snubbed from both.
That's some bullshit. They hate us, Sam. They hate the Giants.
Mm.
They just do. The media hates us. So last year, obviously, these numbers took a step back because of Shane Bowen's system. Do you think that he can get back to similar stats this year? You think he's going to be about what he was last year because it's the same defense coordinator?
I think he'll be much better this year. So I've said this before. I think that him taking the step backwards is a little bit overblown. He finished the year, yes, with 93 combined tackles. I have it pulled up, but he only played in 12 games. That's 5 weeks that he missed out. So I'm actually going to do a quick math here of averages. So 93 divided by 12 is 7.75 compared to 149 divided by 17. So he only averaged 1 tackle less per game, essentially. The numbers don't look great because he missed a lot of time. And I know that there's more than just the numbers, and people obviously had some criticisms of his effort here or there, or some missed tackles here or there. What I think it really comes down to more than the scheme was the lack of talent in front of Bobby Okereke, especially after Dexter Lawrence went down with his season-ending injury that made it abundantly difficult for these linebackers to stop the run. But really just generally, the lack of interior defenders that they had and talent that they had on the defensive line had a severe adverse effect not only on Okereke, but on McFadden and all of the linebackers who ended up starting games and playing games for the Giants this year. So I don't think Okereke took a step backwards. I find it all to be overblown. I think he's still a really good player. And I think more than the system that was holding him back, it was the players around him, and the Giants have gotten better. The players around Okereke have gotten better. So therefore, I think he'll have a return to form.
Without question, not just the players in front of him, but the players behind him are also much better this year. So, and again, you're in the second year, you understand the scheme. And you didn't need to I could have done that in my head. I am good with math. That's one of the things I excel at. But I think it seemed like he made a really much bigger impact in 2023 outside of the numbers. Because like you mentioned, it's not just about the numbers, but the fact that the talent around him is better, it makes everybody better when everybody around you is better. It just does. It's much easier to perform when you're not like the focal point or one of the two focal points on the defense. And again, everybody was besieged by injuries this year. It was a terrible 2024. Everything was bad. I don't know anybody that actually took a step forward last year. Did anybody take a step forward on this team? Malik Neighbors don't count because, I mean, he was a rookie. Did anybody?
Micah McFadden, I think he got better. I think he's gotten better every year, to be honest. I really like Micah McFadden.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite players on the team.
Hey, that was a really good pick by Joe Shane. Gonna give him credit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wan'Dale Robinson, I'd say, took a step forward. But yeah, outside of that, you're pretty hard pressed to find anybody else that took a step forward.
I'll tell you this: I think Wan'Dale could have a big step forward this year.
With Russ contract year for him too, so he's definitely incentivized to.
I definitely with a couple of tight ends, Theo Johnson coming back healthy, Malik Neighbors obviously, and Darius Slayton coming back with Russell Wilson. It's because we know Russ throws the ball on time. That should help. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson's there as a yak guy, so get him out there in space, lead him to the ball. Let him run and catch the ball in stride. Let him get those extra yards instead of having to turn around or sit there and wait for the ball while the defender's, bearing down on you, causing incompletions or tackling you right away and not getting any yards after the catch. So the quarterback is going to make a big difference on every offensive player on this team this year. I don't think there's any question about it. Russell Wilson will make a big difference. He will make everybody on that side of the ball better. Maybe it's just because I'm a Russ stan. I don't know. But I do feel like that's going to happen.
I mean, I'll add to that. I know we've got the super chat to get to, but I said this on the Bleach Report live stream I just did at 6. When you're looking at the jump from bad quarterback to average, the jump from an average quarterback to a slightly above average quarterback or even an above average quarterback is not that great. But when you go from bad to average, the way you need to look at it is a bad quarterback has so many different flaws. Let's say not on time, inaccurate, poor pocket presence, doesn't read the field well, pre-snap problems, can't identify blitzers, all of those problems in a bad quarterback. And when you get to average, you eliminate probably half of those flaws. And when you get to above average, you probably eliminate maybe one or two more, which is why the jump isn't as great. But if you think about how all of those flaws for a bad quarterback amalgamate and what they do to an offense, it's toxic waste. It just completely sinks the ship, basically. But when you get to average, and you eliminate some of those flaws will remain. But getting rid of half of that baggage, that's why it is such a big jump to go from like league worst quarterback play, like the Giants had last year, just to average will make an overnight monumental difference, which is why I'm remaining so optimistic about this Giants team, because I think they're improving on being on time. Their deep accuracy is definitely improving. Their pre-snap stuff is definitely improving. So you're getting rid of a lot of that toxic waste. And as a result, yeah, you're going to see a lot of these players take a step forward. And ultimately, this offense really doesn't have an excuse. It should at least be average this season. And they were average in 2022 on offense, and they were probably top 10 to 15 on defense in 2022. If they can replicate that again, I trust Brian Daboll to get us back to the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's a great point. You mentioned, I don't know if it was last week or a couple of shows ago, Russ likes to throw the deep ball. He threw a bunch of balls over 20 yards last year, and Malik Neighbors did not have one bomb, one long touchdown. Well, this year you're going to get that. At some point, you would think they're going to at least take some shots to Malik Neighbors on the field. And because Russ continues to tout for Jalen Hyatt, like he just really likes Jalen Hyatt. And again, I don't expect Jalen Hyatt to come in here and make an impact, and he's going to have to battle for a spot. There's no guarantee he makes the team. But again, Jalen Hyatt is that guy who is strictly just a burn. I always just compare him to the guy like Deshaun Jackson was never, I never thought Deshaun Jackson was an elite guy, but Deshaun Jackson was a guy that was going to give you, might catch 2 passes the whole game, but it'd be for like 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. That could be what Jalen Hyatt brings you, is just, maybe it's just one deep ball game. Don't even need to be a touchdown. Maybe it's just a 50-yard pass. Like, was it the second half against Arizona a couple of years ago when he had a couple of big bombs?
Yeah.
Maybe that's all it takes. It just, that type of thing loosens up the defense, whereas opposed to everything's just underneath and you can just play 7 guys in a blanket and know, well, we're not really have to worry about him going over our head because they don't throw the ball that deep. They don't ever throw the ball deep, or he doesn't have time to throw the ball deep, or whatever the situation is. They're not stretching the field, so we can just play underneath coverage the whole time. We ain't got to worry about these guys making a big play getting behind us. So we can just gang tackle these guys, and we can just play up and just, play tight and make 3-yard passes. So tough. Because, Anthony, I'm telling you, man, when I do watch football, I see these guys all the time, 3rd down and 8. It's a quick slant for 11 yards. I'm like, why can't we do that? Well, this looks so easy. A 3-yard post us is like a root canal. It's like pulling teeth. We can't do anything. So the quarterback play is going to be, it's much improved. The quarterback room is much improved, and that should much improve the Giants offense as well. Of course,
absolutely.
Health is important to that in front too. Andrew Thomas got stale. We probably should say that every stream until the freaking year starts. Guys got to stay healthy. Thomas needs to be healthy. Tutto, grazie, paisano. He says, salutes and respects to paisani, bad dog, and big Tony, and all dire Giants fans across the pond. Greetings from our Italian national rugby team in Italy. Tutto, and then he doubles up. And they have to have Italian. I don't speak Italian. No parlo italiano.
Tony, congratulations for your something and for the good presentation, well deserved. The Sonalini, I think, it's definitely something that has to do with Napoli. So thank you, Tuto. I know you're not happy with the outcome, but I am overjoyed. I mean, so Bad Dog, to put it in the perspective, Napoli is a team, they kind of like always hang around being one of the best in the league. That's been the case for the last 3 decades. Back in the 80s, they had a player named Diego Maradona, an Argentinian. He was the best player in the world at the time, and he won 2 championships for Napoli, their first and only 2 for the following 30 years. But then over the last 3 years, we've now won 2 as of today. So we're having like a real renaissance. It's a really exciting time to be a Napoli fan. So very cool stuff. And it came down to the final day. This is the first time since 1998 that the championship was decided in the final match of the season. So it was a pretty historic day for the Italian Soccer League, and definitely a historic day for a bunch of Neapolitan Italians. Yeah,
very cool. I no parlo Italiano. My grandmother did. My mother don't. I don't. That's about all I know is no parlo Italiano. But I love when Tuto comes in, so I can throw an Italian accent out there, but I can't speak Italian at all. Who dat says Russ is gonna kill this season. I hope so. Sean says, which player has the most to prove this season? I think we did this last week. Maybe not offensively, but defensively. But who do you got, Anthony?
The most to prove on offense. See, I've got my more reserved take and I've got my spicier take. We'll drop the hot one. It's Andrew Thomas. Prove you can stay healthy, man. Like, seriously, I think it's so important. I know he doesn't have a lot to prove on the field. We know he's a top 5 to 10 offensive tackle in the NFL when he's healthy, but prove that you can be healthy, because look at how good the Giants were when he was in 2022. They went to the playoffs. That's pretty much because Andrew Thomas was healthy that they went to the playoffs. When he's not healthy, we lose games. So prove that you can stay healthy. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think Kayvon Thibodeau has a lot to prove. Deontay Banks as well. It's a toss-up between those two, but I'll go with Kayvon as a former top 5 overall pick. He immediately, when he was drafted by the Giants, said that he wants to be the next Michael Strahan, that he has aspirations to be an absolute legend. We need to see you start to make good on those promises, start to look like you have a legendary trajectory. A lot to prove there, especially with Abdul Carter entering the mix, number 3 overall pick, now drafted even higher than Kayvon with even higher expectations. He has a lot to prove, but he doesn't have to prove it right away. Kayvon, you're kind of running out of time. So he's the number 1 player I think has a lot to prove on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Kayvon has been that guy since he was a rookie. I think there's been a lot of pressure on him. I think fans, at least on Twitter, I see a lot of people bash him, say he's a bust, say he's no good, including Des Bryant, who got into a war of words with him on Twitter, which I thought was funny, because Des never won anything. So I always find it amusing when he says anything. But, I saw that war of words, but there are fans saying he's a bust, he's no good. I remember Carl Banks was stuck up for him on, I forgot the clown's name on WFAN, Sal, I think Sal Licata, whatever. But, Carl was trying to stick up for him, and Sal pretty much just hung up on him. And I was like, what the hell, So I think Kayvon Thibodeau definitely has a lot to prove to, the fans. He's just got to be more consistent. There is definitely, the guy's ultra talented. I mean, you can see it. It doesn't always have to translate in a sack. But I feel like maybe if he was just more consistent every game, because there are some games that just doesn't seem like he's even there, or he doesn't make any kind of an impact. But when you're the 5th overall pick, I think people expect a lot more of you. Deontay Banks is another one as well, but the fact he was picked 24th, I don't think there's as much pressure on him. But those are 2 guys that are first-round picks that if they step up on defense, this defense could be elite. I mean, it could literally be an elite defense if Tay Banks and Kayvon take a step forward to go with all the other players that are on this team. I think the defense could be a lot of fun to watch. And again, as a guy that grew up in the 80s, as a kid in the 80s, watching those legendary linebackers, LT and Banks, Pepper Johnson and Gary Reasons, and Harry Carson, to go with a guy like Leonard Marshall, who, to watch those guys just wreck everybody every week. There's no reason to think that this Giants defense cannot wreak havoc on quarterbacks. I can see a lot of sacks this year. I can see them being top 5 in sacks. I mean, they were top 10 in sacks last year. So if they stay healthy, and this is with Dexter Lawrence missed 5 games, this is with Bobby Okereke missed 5 games, Kayvon missed time, and they had no Abdul Carter. So think about it. Those guys can stay healthy. Shit, the Giants could lead the league in sacks. I mean, if you think about it. So especially with an improved secondary where the quarterback may have to hold on to the ball for 0.2 of a second longer, and that's all it takes in the NFL. It goes that fast. So I'm excited about the defense, man. I think it can be really, really good, especially if that offense can just sustain some drives and keep the time of possession even. Not to where our offense is on the field 27 minutes a game and the defense on the field 33 minutes a game, which is what it seems like it's been the last few years. If it's 30-30, if you will, this defense could really, really be something good. Shane, there's a lot of pressure on Shane Bowen, I think, with that group of guys. Offensively, I'm going to say Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Wan'Dale, like you mentioned, he's in a contract year. I know that's not all his fault, but I think with a guy like Russell Wilson behind center, I think that he has a lot to prove, especially with how proven Malik Neighbors was last year. He's got to be a guy that gets those big 3rd down and 7s. He's got to be the guy that gets those yards after catch. He's got to be the guy that goes over the middle and, make these clutch catches for us, get those first. That's what a lot of these slot receivers do. Third down 6, they get an 8-yard slant, first down. We have to rely on him to do that type of stuff, and maybe he can break a couple of big ones if he gets out in space. But I think Wandale's got a lot to prove this year. He was a second-round pick. We passed on a lot. Joe Shane passed on a lot of prospects that people were like, how did you pass on George Pickens? I think was one of them. I remember Breece Hall was one of them. So there was a lot of people that were like, why didn't you take – there was other players too, not just those, but I don't know. Just wanted to put that up there.
That's me speaking my broken Italian.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to put that up there. Tutto, grazie paesano, grazie. Tony, I've been telling Bad Dog for the last 7 years about head coaching carrying the club to championships, referring to Conti. But Bad Dog stubborn won't believe that Fat Dumbo ain't no good. He won't listen to us, mate. He don't like Daboll.
I see that, and I like that you call him Conte.
Daboll.
It's Conte, Antonio Conte. He's the manager, the head coach for Napoli. He like is a serial winner. Anywhere he goes, he just wins championships. The head coach makes all the difference in soccer, European football. So I get what Tuto's saying, but hey, listen, Daboll was head coach of the year for a reason in 2022. That was a really bad roster that he won a lot of games with and went to the playoffs. So we'll see.
Yeah, I am. Tuto, I'm Italian. You know, I'm stubborn. That goes without saying. It's in our blood, man. We are stubborn. We are stubborn by nature. Maybe I just want to believe that he's good, Tuto. I think that he can be a good head coach. I really do. I think he's had a lot of shit to work with. I think he's dealt with a lot of injuries, and he's had a tough quarterback room to say the least. You want to say whatever you want about Daniel Jones. That's fine. He certainly didn't live up to expectations, but he also couldn't stay healthy. So you're throwing Tommy DeVito out there. I mean, he won games with Tommy DeVito. He won games with Tommy DeVito. I mean, what other head coach is winning 3 games with Tommy DeVito? So he won a game with Drew Lock. He was Tim Boyle had to go out there and throw a couple passes. So I want to be a little bit more patient with that fucked up. I like Daboll. I can't help it. I like him.
I like Daboll too. And like I said, in 2022, the Giants had an average offense. They only had an average offense because of Brian Daboll. Their defense was good. They had talent on that side of the ball, and so they ended up with a top 10 to 15 unit. Top 10 to 15 defense and an average offense will get the Giants in the playoffs. I think that's their formula that Brian Daboll said, this is the bare minimum that I need, and I can work with that. If the Giants manage to have a top 10 defense this year, I trust him with Russell Wilson to at least have an average offense, and I think that they will be competitive. But it's put up or shut up, right? If the Giants have 3 wins this season, I'm all for calling Daboll all the mean heavyweight joke names and getting rid of him. So, it's just put up or shut up.
Yeah, agreed. It's weird because I really liked Joe Judge year 1 a lot. I know we were only 6-10. I really liked him. Year 2 was like the first game of the year. I was all immediately off the wagon when he threw that challenge flag on the scoring play. It drove me out of my mind because I'm like, this is a dude that preaches fundamentals, and I'm like, you don't even know the rules, bro. They review all scoring plays. You can't challenge a scoring play. The league automatically looks at that. So what are you doing? He's like, I was trying to get their attention. You're an idiot. You didn't know the rule. Just admit it. And he had a terrible year there, 4-13. And again, he had Jake Fromm back there and Mike Glenn, and it's not like he had a great team either. But I couldn't stand him. Daboll had a bad team, won 3 games, and the team looked terrible. And yet I'm willing to give him another shot. And maybe it's because he actually had a successful rookie campaign as a head coach, won coach of the year, brought a team that nobody thought would go to the playoffs, won a playoff game for the first time in 10 years. So maybe I am being a little bit more patient with him because he's proven that he actually can win something. I know it's not the ultimate goal, but we hadn't tasted any success like that in a decade. So maybe I'm a little bit more lenient for Brian Daboll as opposed to Joe Judge, who was 6-10 and then 4-30. And not to mention when he ran the back-to-back quarterback sneaks, I think everybody knew at that point. That was embarrassing.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that before you get to this chat, there's a really great perception around the league that Brian Daboll is a really good coach. Like, he's very well respected around the NFL, and fans who are not fans of the Giants think that he is awesome and that the Giants roster is really bad. But Giants fans think he's a bad coach because we had to experience the last 2 seasons. And I understand you would assume that because we watch the team so much, know our players and coaches better than anybody else. But the history is that that's not the case. Xavier McKinney going on to become an all-pro elsewhere, Saquon Barkley going on to become an MVP level player elsewhere. We always talk about how players end up leaving the Giants and then becoming way better, right? And I wonder if a lot of those players who end up leaving the Giants and becoming way better are players that around the league, people look at them really highly, and Giants fans, for whatever reason, are just down on, and then they walk. And I wonder if that could end up being the same thing with Brian Daboll, where Giants fans are critical of him because, we've had a couple bad seasons, but he's still really well respected around the league. Everybody seems to think that he's one of the best offensive minds in football. I don't want the situation like Saquon happens where Daboll leaves and then has a ton of success elsewhere, and then look at the Giants with the egg on their face once again. I'm afraid of that happening.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen either at all. Adam, he says, after strong drafts and smart free agent moves, is it possible Joe stays and Daboll is fired if the season goes bad? I would hate that. I think it is possible, but I would hate that. I'm an advocate of you get rid of one, get rid of them all.
And I think that's how they would do it. I don't know. I can't see one surviving and not the other based on the way things have gone because, yes, he had 2 strong drafts in a row and some good free agency moves. Still let Saquon walk, and that definitely embarrassed the Giants, definitely embarrassed John Mara. Still signed Daniel Jones to that egregiously terrible contract, so he's not without his fault. So I don't know. He's made up for it to some extent, but he definitely would need to be held responsible if it's another losing season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think they both need to be gone. But Joe Shane's definitely made mistakes. I think he rectified them, though. And again, listen, the Barkley thing looked bad because it was hard knocks. I discussed this ad nauseum when he left. I'm like, he didn't want to be a Giant. I don't want to tell you guys. I know you don't want to hear that, and I know you'd want to place blame on Joe Shane or whatever, but he didn't want to be a Giant. If he wanted to be a Giant, he would have signed a contract. It's that simple. It was $1 million or $2 million or whatever the hell it was. It's not like they couldn't have made that back to him in other ways. When they tagged him, they went out of his way to give him an extra $1 million because of whatever the hell rule it was. They gave him an extra like $900,000. They gave him the absolute most they could for the tag, but he didn't want to be here. I mean, the team was bad, and he obviously didn't want to be here. He went to Philadelphia. Then, yeah, he left and became, we all knew he was great. He didn't play the way he played in, last year for Philadelphia. He didn't play like that here in 2023. He didn't play hard for us. How many times did he get caught from behind when he was here? He looked, the first game I saw him against Green Bay last year, I'm like, he looks like he lost like 15 pounds, man. I'm like, he looks so much leaner and faster to me. Where were the Giants? He didn't want to get hurt. I don't care what anybody says, and that may hurt people's feelings, but I believe that. I don't believe he was motivated to be here. I think he wanted out. I think he got out. Maybe that had something to do with Joe Shane. Maybe it didn't, but he didn't want to be here. He didn't want to be on a losing team. McKinney, he was my favorite player, so I hated seeing him walk, but he didn't get along with Link Martindale, and he had the ATV accident, and I think that started to go south a couple of years ago too. So. And I also think the Giants would have been hard pressed to give him $17 million a year. So this year they went out and they rectified it,
Yep.
Last one of the night, Sublight says, what do the Giants got to do differently in camp to avoid a total blowout to start the season again?
Stop playing scared and stop trying to avoid injuries. When you play scared of injuries, that's how you get injured, or that's how you start the season off really slowly, and then you play from behind, and then you get injured in the long run. So essentially what I mean is that the Giants don't use up all of their afforded time to put the pads on. They don't scrimmage enough at those training camps, and the starters barely play a wink during the preseason. They should be playing during the preseason because you could get hurt walking across the street. You can get hurt in the middle of a practice. You can get hurt on the fourth snap. Aaron Rodgers on the 4th snap of the first game of the regular season. You can get hurt at any time. So you might as well go out there and get the reps during the preseason so that you're ready to play at a high level in week 1. But the Giants have been so cautious about putting their players on the field in the preseason because they've been so afraid of injuries that it's had a really bad effect on them in the regular season. They start losing games, and then they get injured as a result of that. So they're injuring themselves in the long run. It's like they're affording themselves some healthy time in the beginning of the regular season when everybody's playing like shit so that they can play like shit and then get hurt later on. That's essentially how it works for them. So go out there and compete in the preseason, get the reps. It's important. The best teams, I mean, this was the best one, Bad Dog. I remember screaming. I was so pissed off on Fireside Giants when I saw week 1 of last year's preseason, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, all of these MVP caliber quarterbacks taking snaps in week 1 of the preseason, and Daniel Jones on the sideline with a fucking walkie-talkie. What are we doing? Where did he earn that privilege? Mahomes is out there. What the fuck? I was so pissed.
I reiterate everything you said. And I mentioned that a number of times myself. You get hurt at any point. Tom Brady got hurt in 2008, I think, or whatever the hell season was when they got away from the low hit on the quarterback. Maybe it was the first series, maybe. You never know when you're going to get hurt, man. You got to play. You got to get reps. You got to build cohesiveness. You got to build timing. You got to work on stuff. You got to work on snap counts, cadence. You got to work on plays. You got to work on timing so you're not getting full start on 3rd and 1, which pisses me off more than anything else. 3rd down and 1, ball start, 72 off, whoever the hell it is. And then it's 3rd and 6. So that type of shit it's just like pitchers fielding practice or whatever in spring training. These guys get at bats to get their timing down. The Giants got to play some. I'm saying they got to play all 4 quarters, but they definitely got to play more minutes than they have in the past, without question. Tudo says, Bear Dog, nobody says we hate Fenway. We are saying he ain't ready for head coaching positions. He's learning and experimenting on the Giants' payroll with terrible records. I mean, again, Tudo, he won a playoff game his first year, so I think that's why I'm more lenient with him. But hopefully he's learned. He went to the school of hard knocks, and he was on hard knocks literally. All we can do is hope that he's learned from his mistakes and that he'll be better this year. And Tudo, if he has another bad year, he won't be back. He will be gone. If he struggles again this year, there is no doubt he's going to be out without question.
Yep. Yeah, do or die for him and Shane. And I will say, though, Tudo, some of what he said there is definitely right, because it's been, we always say rookie growing pains, year 1, 2, 3 for players, and how they're going to, have their growing pains through the first 3 seasons of their career. Rookie head coach, rookie GM, they've definitely had their growing pains. But now that you're in year 4, you got to put it all together. So that's essentially what it is. So I can give them some leniency for the first few seasons and some of the mistakes that they made. They're definitely living on borrowed time at this point after last season, but that borrowed time is from when they had the playoff win. But now it's year 4. So you got to put it together, put a competitive team on the field. And if you don't, somebody else will.
Correct. Well, that said, that'll wrap up another edition of Giants Collective. Of course, Giants Collective, big shout out to BetUS for powering Giants Collective. You guys can check us out on Amazon Music. You can check us out on, where are we? Apple, Spotify, wherever else you may find your podcast, TikTok, Instagram. All the links are in the description below. If you want to become a member, you just click that join button. You'll get custom emojis, monthly member messages, your name in the outro credits, and access to members-only live chats. So for Anthony, it's Bad Dog. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend. Go Knicks. I'm about to call that game right now. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Be out.